Welcome to the Create Your Happy podcast, where conscious female creators come together with a shared vision to inspire and empower women as they learn how to fully embrace their humanness, find their unique voice, and collaborate on how together we can change the world. I'm your host, Christy Holt, happiness coach and conscious funpreneur on a mission to change the world one beautiful soul at a time. All right, gorgeous, it's time to get curious and become inspired. It's time to create your happy. Welcome to the Create Your Happy podcast. I am really pumped, as always, to have another beautiful guest on my show. And today I have with me the gorgeous Dawnalyn Webster, and she is a women's empowerment coach and the founder of an international retreat company called RDH Retreats. Dawnalyn, I'm so excited. I know we're going to have an amazing conversation, but let's kick us off here with a little bit of your background, a little bit about your story of overcoming and how all of life's journeys and adventures have led you to this place where you are today, where you are obviously, passionate about sharing your lessons so they can empower other women to step into a higher version of themselves. Welcome to the show, and I cannot wait to dive in.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited and honored to be here. Okay, so a little snapshot of my journey. So you get an idea of where I'm coming from and why I do what I do.
Yeah.
So in my 20s, I started sort of exploring personal development. And in that, I really discovered I was not the person I wanted to be. I was very much in that victim state, just lacking accountability, not owning my life. I felt disempowered all the time. I was sad and angry, honestly, a lot of the time. And I started to shine a light on that, on those shadow aspects of who I was, and started really looking at why is my life like this? And can I even change it? And I had no idea that I could. So I, went down that rabbit hole of lifetime exploration of personal development and started unearthing things and discovering, holy shit, I do have a voice. I do have a say. I can make choices that impact my general well-being and my overall quality of life this round, right? Mind blowing. Actually, I can hop in the driver's seat that I vacated because I never knew was open.
Yeah.
And I can hop in the driver's seat and start shifting gears and turning corners and making calls and slowing down and speeding up and going all the places I wanted to go. And that moment of realization of, holy shit, I actually have an impact on my life, where it's going, and it's all starting from who I choose to be, was such a massive game changer. And since then, you keep diving into personal development, you keep chatting with other people, exploring. I took nursing as part of that journey. I took massage training and Reiki therapy and all this stuff on my journey of exploration and discovery. And, the culmination was, holy, I need to help other women who are in that space of not sure. Can I do this? Where am I going? I feel ready and I want it, but I'm scared and I don't know how to take the twists and turns and which corners to turn and where to look and where to slow down and where to speed up, and trusting in yourself. So kind of my whole journey. And along that journey, I'll just toss in there, along that journey, I actually ended up developing an addiction to alcohol and going through that whole process. And over the last couple of years, finding sobriety and making that choice of really radical accountability. This is my life. These are my choices. And I can see the negative effects. I can see what I could be, who I can be, and where I could be going. And so I've also made the decision to get sober. So that's something that I speak to here and there as well. Just sharing my journey, because in hearing other people's, I've found a lot of commonalities and a lot of common struggle in, especially in that first little bit of, gee, I don't know if I can go without this.
Yeah.
And it gets hard, right? It gets hard when there's a dependency of some kind and the conditions to lean on that as I'll call it coping as a
Yeah.
crutch, right? It's actually a crutch, which I discovered for myself. So, and then, through that journey of sobriety on top of personal development, on top of relationship expansions and all these other things, came the container of coaching and support. And then that skyrocketed just not long ago into destination retreats. So we can really be connecting and really be growing and really be spreading all of that love and passion. And I get to do it in collaboration, which just makes my heart sing. So much.
Yeah. I love all of that. Love collaboration. Love empowering women. Obviously, that's why I'm hosting this show, because I think, the truth is we don't know what we don't know. So when we are stuck in that initial space where we're feeling, as I did, so I'm going to use my previous version of me words, really helpless and really hopeless. And like all the shit was happening to me, but there wasn't something I could do. And the more I tried to control all of the things out there, the more out of fucking control everything felt. And it felt desperate and hopeless at the same time. And it was just this like chaos of anxious thoughts and overwhelm and holy shit, like I'm a very logical intellectual thinker, so just like so much thoughts
Yeah.
entwined with so much emotion behind those thoughts, and it just kept me in like this shitstorm of chaos inside my mind, which kept me trapped there. And I didn't see the way out. I didn't know what I didn't know. And yet, when I broke down those barriers slowly, little bit by little bit, and took a look at, oh, what is this, this box that I'm in?
Yeah.
How can I start breaking out of the box in an effort to bring it down and find some sort of way out? I learned so many different things about myself. And I love that we're going to talk about a lot of those things, I think, today as we kind of go through, because the biggest thing that I discovered was that none of the answers were out there. They were all within me. Now, that's not to say that I just decided to look inward and there all the answers were and it was easy and it just all happened so smoothly and then all of a sudden, it didn't happen like that either, right? It took
Yeah.
some intentional discovery and looking at the shit I didn't want to look at, especially called the nuggets, and especially the things that trigger us, right?
Mhm.
To use the word trigger or activate or however, the things that really bring up those emotions. And we're like, oh, I don't know what to do with this. This is really uncomfortable. And like, maybe we'll like lash out or get defensive or run away or pick up a drink, whatever the numbing mechanism is to avoid it. I feel like we've done them all. I've done all of those things in an attempt to just quiet that down so that I don't have to face it. Right.
Oh my gosh. I know. I know. And like, it's overwhelming when you discover you don't know what you don't know and you only know this tiny little fraction of what's actually out there to learn and know. It's almost overwhelming and it's almost discouraging, right? And then when you look inside, we're so conditioned as women, especially
Especially.
to shame and guilt and shove down and suppress the things we don't want to look at because they don't look or feel good, right? They're not presented well. So
Yeah.
looking at those things, it's almost there's almost did you find with your experience that there's almost like a sense of shame that came with it at first where you're like, oh my gosh, look at what I'm creating, look at what I'm doing, look at my crutches, what have I been up to? Like this shitstorm I'm living in, this box of chaos is my creation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big, bold step to get from the place where you think that all the things are happening to you to that realization, like, oh, okay. And you know what? The fact is, it doesn't matter what came up till this point. It doesn't matter if someone else did something to, I mean, it does matter. I'm not dismissing your experience. But what it doesn't matter for is you're moving forward, okay? Because you still get to decide. That's this like radical empowerment is that in that moment, you get to decide, am I taking this past story with me, the one I've been telling myself, that makes me feel small and limited and unsure of what potential I could even possibly have and whether I'm worthy of it, is that the story you're going to keep dragging along? Or do you want to start with a new, fresh perspective, one that gives you the power to make anything happen?
Totally. And that radical empowerment is partnered with radical commitment and
Mm-hmm.
radical accountability, in that radical empowerment doesn't just come from being like, okay, I'm good. I'm ready to move on. I'm
Yeah.
flipping the switch. Oh, I'm leaving all that behind me. I'm over it. Cause all of those monsters
Mm-hmm.
are still walking right behind you, lurking in the
Yep.
shadows, ready to pop up whenever they can. But what it does mean is when those suckers pop out, you're like, hey there, I
Mm-hmm.
see you. I know why you're here. And I know what you've been up to, and I know you're on my journey with me. So I'm going to hold your hand instead of fight you, and
Yeah.
we're going to figure this out together. And being like, hey, I know this monster, and it's not living outside of me. Those shadows are in the depths of who we are. And
Yeah.
another thing I discovered is so many of our triggers or activations, they're actually rooted in something outside of what the trigger situation or experience is. There's something deeper. And so often, we don't have to go down this rabbit hole today, but so often it comes from like a childhood, like
For sure.
little wound. There's the child within you that is walking with you still, following you. Every step you take is in your shadows, being wanting to be just like you. Is has wounds that they bring too. So when those activation trigger moments come up, that child goes into survival mode, whether it's lash out, crumble, attack, get depressed, run to numb. And that's so often why we then spiral. But the radical accountability, the radical commitment comes in when you say, okay, those monsters, you got them hand in hand, they're popping up, things are going on around you, and you return to your center and you're like, okay, this is happening. It's not going good for me.
Yeah.
What am I going to do to stay on the track that I've chosen for myself? That new flip of the switch, that's what I wanted. How do I recommit to that? Because those demons, those monsters, those shadows, they pop up and they throw you off track so easily. And that's part of the normal human process, right? We
Yeah.
have a tendency to forget that part is normal. We don't just, okay, I choose a new life, it's all good, all that's
Yeah.
behind me, cool, blinders up, head down, moving forward. But remembering that when something comes and hits you from the side, because you got your blinders
Yeah.
up and your head's down, you're focused, you're dialed in, you're like laser focused. And then that thing comes in from the side, is being like, oh, okay, like I'm off track, I'm stumbling to the side now. That recommitment, that radical commitment to, this is the track I want to be on. I'm a human. It's okay. I'm stumbling off to the side for a minute. I didn't fall back on my crutches and my numbing and my things. I have my my inner child's hand in my hand, my monster's hands in my hands, and together as a unit, we're recommitting to going forward on the path that we desire to explore.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy, man.
It's not easy. And you know what? I think there's a misconception that once you're healed, everything will be smooth and that you will have no more suffering. And while I would argue that your suffering will be quite minimized because now you're in control of how long you let that kind of fester and how long you're ruminating, it doesn't mean you're going to sidestep it altogether. Although, to be fair, you'll probably sidestep a whole lot of shit that you wouldn't have. Okay. That's a whole nother thing. But it's not about, being able to just, not have it. It's about how to ride the wave when it comes up and be like, oh, yeah, no, I know what I'm doing here. I got this. And not because, the patterns that are coming up are, scary things that indicate you haven't grown. In fact, you'll really often see patterns come up and these same problems come up. And it's an opportunity because you are not the same person. Every time you experience or confront the same pattern, you have changed. So now you're seeing it from a new perspective. And when you shifted your perspective, now you're outside of the thing and you can just look at, look at that. Isn't that interesting? That pattern is coming up. What kind of information might I take from this so it doesn't derail me? Right? and loving on that piece of information like it's saving your life, right? That radical love and acceptance towards, I don't know, maybe what you might consider the dark parts of yourself, that shadow, those uncomfortable feelings that you would rather avoid. Typically, like as you said, as like inner child woundings are coming out. And it's probably completely unbeknownst to you why these things are even coming up. But if you find yourself reacting in a similar way, you might want to start looking for the nuggets of information because they're there. I guarantee it. And when you start to look at it and say, okay, it's okay, I accept myself, and not beating yourself up, that whole shame cycle keeps you stuck. No good. We want to step above and out of that into your freedom, right? Where you are now the one who's creating and choosing for yourself your response.
Totally, 100%. And yeah, that shame cycle is just, it's what we're taught to keep us
Yeah.
small, and it's how we're treated to keep us small as women, and avoid stepping into that radical accountability and that radical commitment to ourselves, that radical love and acceptance that, we chatted briefly about this being hard work, and
Yeah.
you can view it as hard work, or you can view it as hard commitment.
Yeah.
You are hard ass committed to yourself, to developing into whoever you're becoming, healing the things that you can. And if you're analytical like me, you want to dig out the root of what's going on. And I can assure you from self experience, personal experience, you don't always need the root.
Yeah.
Understanding the root explanation to unearth the wounding that you feel, that reaction, that response that is prompted within you to actually overcome it.
Yeah.
Like, I bet you're analytical like me, and you're like, but I want to know why. Where did this come from? And the truth is, we don't truly need to know that to be
Yeah.
able to say, I accept this part of me. I see this pattern within myself. And I know I can choose when it comes up to do something in a new, different way. And
Yeah.
each time you do that, it's like, like I explain to like the women that I work with, kind of how I describe it is like we have so much depth and so many layers as humans that like, you deal with this piece, say you have a mother wound and you have, abandonment, acceptance, wounding from that. You heal this layer, you have some acceptance and some forgiveness, and then it gets set aside because the wound settles and the dust settles and it smooths out for a while, and then you go down the road and you're like, oh my gosh, out of the blue, wham, punch to the face, here's your mother wound, fresh again. But this time you dust it off, you deal with it. It doesn't take quite as long. The sting isn't quite as deep and
Yeah.
as intense, and it could be so subtle, so minimal. And you go through this years and years and years, perhaps. And then eventually, when that same wound comes to the surface, that trigger, the activation, however it might come for you, you see it and you say, you're still there because you're a part of me and I'm a part of you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I heard this saying once. I have to share it with you because it just ties so perfectly to this. The saying is something along the lines of, we never truly slay our demons, we simply learn to live above them.
Mm.
And I really liked that concept, in that those things may never leave. But what happens is you expand and elevate and grow through that tenderness with self, that radical self-love, that acceptance, shining your light on those shadow areas or aspects that are uncomfortable or painful, and moving into a new space of awareness and acceptance. It's not about perfecting it, like
Yeah.
speaking of illusions, there's an illusion that all healed people, are all just, oh, rainbows and unicorns, everything's great. I'm healed. Everything is
No, we still take in the meat suit for a joyride on a regular occasion, right?
right. Oh yeah, for sure. We are still here doing the work. We are still
Yeah.
here feeling the things, working through the moments, shining the light on that new layer that is now just surfaced. And okay, well, there's that. It's still here. It still exists. Now what's my next step? you know, like it's an ongoing, and say you heal a wound and you feel it's thoroughly healed and you move forward, don't be surprised when a new one shows up, because we're freaking humans, man.
Yeah, it's a whole adventure, right? And there's always something. Now, I want to just say that as you progress through and kind of discover a little bit more of who you are, and honestly, this is more about unlearning who you're not. Right? And uncovering all of what we have been told to believe about ourselves, especially as women, speaking to a women audience here. So, especially as women, under the whole idea of being a good girl, right? And about, your role as a woman to be the caregiver, right? The nurturer, all of these parts of ourselves, which of course are parts of all of us, honestly, but they're overdeveloped in a lot of women because they're fully fucking expected of us that this is our rule from 2 years old, even, right? That
Yeah.
we have our dollies and we take care of our dollies and we treat them like, you know, with love and nurturing and and basically just adopt that caregiving role right off the hop.
Yeah.
So we're ingrained with this idea that that is our responsibility and that is our role. Now, if we strip some of that away, we'll find there is for sure there's some of that innate in all of us. We are all built to nurture and care for other people. Men and women
Yeah.
have this ability. This is, very, very feminine energy type thing, as opposed to the masculine energy, which is more about like the providing and the doing and the getting out there and the getting results and the hustle and the grind. Over here on the feminine side, we have this nurture and flow and ease and just it's love, it's loving and just giving out of abundance. And I'll tell you what, if you can make your way into like a nice little balance where we've got a nice sweet harmony between the two, it doesn't have to feel so hard. It doesn't have to be so difficult. Being you, scary as hell as the concept may seem, to really fully and authentically step into who you are and your voice and your message feels terrifying at first. But the more you ease into it, the more easy and natural it is. And instead of, I don't know, working so hard to be someone for someone else,
Mm-hmm.
all of that is stripped away. And then you can just show up and be you as the soul you are, having this human experience that you're creating. And that there's a lot of freedom in that piece, right?
So much. And until you feel a taste of the freedom, you maybe can't see it, because
Yeah.
it's, I find so many of the women that I chat with and work with are afraid. They're truly afraid to show who they are. I literally had a conversation with a woman right before we got on this chat, and she was telling me how she's afraid to show up as herself. She has these beautiful skills to showcase. She has education and qualities and all these things that she's happy to show up as, but she has so much pressure to show up confident that she forgets to show her passionate, fun, excited side. And we do that. We mute ourselves in different ways to fit the molds, how we think the world wants us to show
Yep.
up. And one of the most beautiful and loving and validating things you can do for the world is showing up as you and shining your fucking light however you want to shine it and need to shine it. You're like a lighthouse standing on the rocks, and all the little boats are floating around looking for a light, and you turn your light on just a little bit and one boat can see you and they're like, there's a light, and they go over and you're like, oh, a boat responded to my light. So you turn your light up a little bit more and then 5 boats come in, and then you turn on your light. You're like, oh, maybe I'll just blast it, see what happens. You blast that baby and all the boats, suddenly you're like marinas full, because
Yeah.
you shined your light, and then the little boats are turning their lights on. Oh,
Yeah.
if that light's so bright and can shine and attract all this and do so much good, maybe I can shine my little lights. And the inspiration goes, but it's terrifying. You're
It
that
is.
you feel like that lone soldier out there in the dark, no light on, no idea where to shine your light or what's going to happen if you do, until you just try.
And also it feels like you're naked and the lighthouse is on fire, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like inside your body, the first time that you consider, sharing, and it's usually, you know, what we really are meant to share is sort of like that messy bit that's vulnerable as fuck to share. So we've got this messy bit that we're like, ooh, this made me who I am. And in order to share this journey, oh, I might have to share a little bit about the messy bits, and we don't want to. That's scary. Our body is like, whoa, 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 let's not do that because we're probably gonna die.
Yes.
I.e., naked and the lighthouse is on fire. So maybe we should just a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Just like a safe little bit. So we test it, right? And we test it and we test it. But the truth is, the more you can lean into that vulnerability, I know it's scary, but it's also incredibly rewarding. And you can do it in a way that is still safe. Okay. So you don't have to listen, I'm not suggesting that you just go in full force and ignore all of what's going on in your body that's saying, whoa, whoa, stop, 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 we're gonna die. Don't do that. But there
Mhm.
is a way to uncover that mess and turn it into your message while maintaining that safety inside your body so that you can communicate your story, because that's inspiring. Our stories are what inspires others to be like, oh, I see myself in that. Maybe
Mhm.
that's possible for me too. And if you're holding back on that piece that people will see themselves in, then it's going to be harder for them to find you and believe you and trust you and to
Yeah.
follow your lead, which ultimately that's all we can do is we can lead the way, shine
Mhm.
that light,
Shine the
show people
light.
what's possible. And then, as people decide, oh, there is something more for me. I'm not sure what that is, but maybe I'm going to pursue that. Now they're ready to step into what does that next step look like?
For sure. And you know what? So as you're chatting, things are popping in for me. And it's like, you know, oftentimes those messy bits feel edgy, they're going to cause some friction, they're going to cause some ripples, and that fear of rejection and backlash holds
Mhm.
us back too. And I can attest that every single woman who's gone out on a limb and shared aspects of her messy journey, the painful parts, the struggles, the tough bits, have gotten some sort of backlash and kickback. But when you're at the point when you're ready to share, you also recognize when you are the prompt, the trigger, the activation in somebody else, because you're a mirror of
Yeah.
either the journey that they're on and the pain they're feeling, or you're a mirror of what they haven't had the courage to step into yet.
Yeah.
And that can be super scary for people and uncomfortable for them to receive. The truth of it is, however, when you start reaching the edges of yourself and you touch that discomfort, like, ooh, this is, I'm feeling in my body, this is new, expansive, scary, there's
And
some fears coming
exciting.
up, and exciting,
Mhm.
right? You feel all of those things, but you're like, I must carry on. You have that knowing, and you reach the edges of yourself, and then you can ease into those edges, not blow past them. We're not
Yeah.
in the masculine, right? If we're going to stick with
Yeah.
feminine energy, we're going to lean into that edge. And every time you lean into the edges of yourself and you share something that little bit more, you open up a little bit more, um, you expand that much more, and you lean in and expand and lean in and expand. And it's this nice, gentle expansion. It's not a hard drive, push through the moments, blow through all of the stops, push away the feelings, right? It's that leaning in and expanding, leaning in and expanding. And it's without a doubt, a process, and but it's so very beautiful. And when you can lean into those moments, and the nudges can be gentle, they can be that flutter in the stomach, they can be that fear that comes up, like, oh man, this one is gonna cause some reactions for sure. And trusting the knowing that you're being called to share and do these things for a reason, for a purpose. And we don't always understand the reason and the purpose. We just know we're divinely guided and following the pulls. And that's leaning into that radical trust of self and feminine energy, and just that opportunity to recommit to the journey, to the path, to the growth, to wherever you're going.
Yeah. Just to stay the course, right? Because the journey there, listen, there's no end destination. I mean, I guess there sort of is an end destination, depending on how you look at it and what exactly you're talking about. But the
Yeah.
key point is it's really all about the journey. It's not about setting a goal and accomplishing said goal. There isn't like you don't just jump from here to there and like check, oh, we're all done, and that's the end of it.
Yep.
No. So, and this is a problem that people run into all the time because they've set a goal, something that they want to accomplish,
Hmm.
but then as they know more and they expand more, they change their goal, right? Because now they think, oh, actually, small goals, I can go bigger. And what happens, they keep moving the goalpost, right? So they're chasing this never ending goalpost, never looking back to say, look where I've come from. And
Hmm.
so instead of leaning into this expansion and being so proud of how far they've come, they're chasing the ever bigger and bigger and better, right? So I want to invite you to just lean into the expansive process, even, and be here with yourself as you're, you know, applying some gentle pressure outwards on the edges of that comfort zone. And, I liken this to when I go hiking. Okay, I don't jump into, I'm not gonna go up a mountain that requires a helmet. Okay, so this is my hard line right now. If I need climbing gear, that's too much, right? But there is also a huge progression from a flat hike to a hike that is up a mountain to a summit. And there's a wide range of things in between there. So it
Yep.
wouldn't be really smart for my growth to attempt to go for the hardest mountain.
Yeah.
It behooves me to build up somewhat gradually and slowly and test where my limits are and being okay with, oh, shit, you know what? This one, I am not going to that summit. This is where I'm going to stop today because this has already pushed my limit. And that's as
Mhm.
far as I'm comfortable going, for today. And that's okay because next time I will feel probably a little bit more bold. And I
Yep.
just trust myself to know when the right time to push a little further is and when the right time to rest and recover is. And now that we're on the topic of resting and recovering and slowing down and tying this back to what you said about, listening to the intuition that you have, that pull that you have, women are not taught about slowing down either. Okay. We are full on full speed,
Yep.
especially as mothers. Okay. Because the society we live in has got us like into this idea that like if our kids are not in everything, we are doing them a disservice and they are going to be failures as adults, which I absolutely don't fucking buy into at
Hmm.
all. And I actually think that all of that is a massive distraction from building the critical thinking skills and the emotional intelligence skills and the wealth building skills that would actually serve them much better in adulthood as opposed to grooming them to get a 9 to 5 job and just service the capitalist machine, if you will. I know I'm painting two extreme opposites. I'm doing that on purpose because I want people to just really think about it. Of course there's a whole spectrum in between, but I
Yeah.
just was being like a little dramatic, pulling in the two spectrums, right? So they can really where do I want, my kids, myself, where do I want to land my focus in this? And what is important to me, right? And what is my intuition telling me? Because we have not been taught to follow that. Again, we're not taught emotional intelligence. We're not taught to tune into our intuition. In fact, we're mostly taught to ignore that, and that's crazy speak, or that's now you're too sensitive, or what, I don't know, whatever kind of stuff that they've said.
Yep.
Listen, the world needs our feminine energy,
Yep.
not because you know women are the end all be all, but because it's been so far swung to the masculine side. All of our systems are built on masculine patriarchal system.
Yep.
All of the religions, all of the social systems, all the government systems, all of it
Everything.
has
Yeah.
been built for men, and then women are sort of this afterthought of like,
Hmm.
they're just the important men's little wives, right? Not
Yes.
so what we need is not necessarily to go out there and smother them with all of our feminine energy. What we need is really a harmonized balance somewhere in the middle where men are showing up in their divine masculine
Yep.
and not rejecting the divine feminine within themselves, and women on the flip side knowing when to push and knowing when to ease off so that we have this harmony and it's not all so extreme one end to the other, but we can kind of ride that wave in the middle.
Yeah, and I think a huge component of that is having that inner harmony. We've been talking about
Sure.
that so much, is like every single human, male, female, masculine, feminine, across the board, however, whatever energy you most strongly identify with, you still have a balance of masculine, feminine components within your being because you are a effing human, right?
Yes.
And so the more we can come into balance with those energies, okay, I identify primarily as feminine energy. That's what I'm called to. That's where I lean to. I have masculine energy that has been way overarching in my life for so very long. And
Yeah.
it did cause me to jump into that feminine and be like, hey, all this has to stop. I don't know what to do with this anymore. I don't want to be the hard hitting doer all the time. So what do I do? And then, you have to find that balance within yourself, because each one of us, it's so intricate, right? Because each one of us, your and my feminine masculine balance is going to be so different. And when we need to pull out those strengths is going to be different. And it's a dance within ourselves. And then as a collective, the masculine energies and the feminine energies need to come together and do that dance. And then as they shift, as the masculine needs to soften, the feminine can firm up and move into that assertion, and vice versa. And it's a constant dance. But the less balanced and in tune we are with our own internal energies, the less balanced we can show up and less harmonious we will be.
Yeah.
Right. And that's in relationships, that's in parenting, and we don't teach our children this. You said it so well. We don't teach our children this. Like I have a 14-year-old daughter who I want to know that she can be and do all the things she wants to be and do. And that includes being a woman. That includes being soft and gentle. That includes standing up and having
And
hard
being
lines,
and being fierce, right? It is
right?
a balance of both. And I think that because forever we were taught to not trust our bodies, right? When our emotions came up and someone else was unable to hold space for them, we were told that we were too much. So we thought, oh shit, okay, let's just okay, how do I
Not
my
that.
survival, what we have done is linked our survival with pleasing other people in a nutshell, in an indirect way. And nobody fucking thought that they were doing this. Nobody. It's just the connection that your little child brain
Hmm.
made between the responses you needed to do to get the survival attention you needed as a small child have
Hmm.
been the mechanisms you are continuously employing, most likely, unless you've done intentional work around it. These are the things that are going to show up in your life. And the more you say, oh, look at that person, I can't stand what they're doing. The more you're identifying those parts that, fuck yes, do exist in you, but
Hmm.
you don't want to admit are there. But the thing is, we're all humans and we have all of the capacity and capabilities of every other human. We have all of the same possibilities.
Yep.
You're special, but you're also not that special. We all have all of it, right? You get to choose how you want to be special, right? By which parts of you are you going to let drive the bus,
Yes,
right?
yes. Like you are unique. You are you. There's no other you. There's no other person. You and I can sit down and do and say the exact
Yep,
same things. Our delivery, how we're received, how we convey ourselves is all going to be
absolutely.
different because you show up as you, I show up as me. So we can all be doing the same damn things,
Yeah,
and it will never be the same. So you're so special, you're so unique,
yeah,
but you're not that different.
right.
We're all so interconnected and interlinked. And I think the other piece is, you're so right. Like when we see those things in someone else that prompts something in us,
Mm,
and we're like, oh, ugh, that is rubbing me all the wrong ways. Sweet. Why?
right.
Let's shine a little light on that snippet of me and see what's going on in there. And you know what? Maybe it's a moral inconsistency. Maybe it's a misalignment. Maybe there's something incongruent, or perhaps there's a misalignment or something incongruent happening inside of yourself, and there's an opportunity there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
like
most of the time that judgment, it's our judgment that's actually playing out the entire thing. It usually is very little to actually do with the other person, and it is entirely to do with the judgment that's coming up in us. And that judgment, we think it's about that person because that's what we want to deflect it. We don't want to be like, oh shit, that's a mirror. No, we don't want to do that. That's uncomfortable. So we just think, oh, look at them. And it's just naturally judging other people in the areas where we think, okay, well, at least I'm not this side, right? And
And
it's information just to be like,
yeah.
oh wow, what judgments am I holding in this area?
Totally. And the other thing I've found with judgments is they're so often taught to us. They're so
Oh yeah.
often, I'll say, gifted in our upbringing and in our experiences. They're not actually, they may not be my true judgments. I might not actually judge that person for that thing. If I look at my morals and values, what might be happening is their light is shining a little brighter in that area than mine. And I'm feeling less than because I'm actually comparing myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm framing it as a judgment. Oh, look at what they're doing. Look at what she's doing. Look what she's up to, whatever it might be. And it's actually, I'm deflecting the shame or guilt I'm feeling within myself because it makes me feel a little smaller, because I feel like I'm not standing quite as tall or shining as bright in that way. And in reflection, if I actually take a good look at that, shine that spotlight. Don't just whip out your little flashlight on your phone, but shine a spotlight on that baby. If you do that, you might actually unearth that judgment or that belief, even about yourself, that's coming up, may not even be yours. It may be something you've heard in your past or in your upbringing that's not actually your truth or your story. And again, another opportunity to be like, oh, fuck a hard pass on that.
Yeah,
I'm not into that anymore.
Let's reverse that one and try again with something that actually feels good. And what I was going to say too about this not trusting our bodies. Okay, we have a built-in barometer for this is what's meant for me and this is what's not. And we've been taught to fucking ignore it.
Yes.
So,
and we teach our children to ignore it.
well, they're more compliant that way, right? They're more compliant. And that is the reason why we have this is why our educational system is another way I feel is failing us, because we're focused on rote memorization of facts and knowledge versus critical thinking. We're not really taught about emotional intelligence, and we're really, really pressured to conform, not express. And so Johnny goes to school and isn't the top artist in the class. Mm-hmm. Maybe they would have become, but no, their art teacher says, no, not that way. Yeah. No, that's too creative for this class. We are doing this strategy, and your creativity not fitting here. You get an F because you didn't follow my strategy, my rules, my approach. Yeah.
You didn't fit in the box and conform.
Yeah. So Johnny grows up and thinks, I'm a shit artist. Like, never draw again because, my elementary art teacher told me I didn't do it the right way. And so I never tried. Right. And this is obviously like a really silly sort of little example, but it's literally probably everyone has one of these in their lives of something they tried to do that they probably really enjoyed doing that was tamped down by someone else for not doing it the right way or under the right circumstances, or frankly, the powers that be, and again, I'm overgeneralizing and not everyone, but the leaders of the world don't actually want to be wrong, right? That's a threat to their power and control.
Yes.
So if we're asking questions and if we're doing things differently, or we're, coming up with new hypotheses, whatever the word is, they're feeling threatened, right? Yes. So they want to, and the same thing is in human interactions too, right? And sometimes we will feel threatened when someone sees something differently than us. And of course, we're not like, oh, this is such a threat. But in an underlying way, something's coming up for us. And we may perceive it directly or indirectly as a threat, or we can perceive it as information. And depending on our judgment of what that is, a threat or some really potentially useful, super informative information, is going to drastically affect the approach that we're going to take and what we're going to do with that information.
And it drastically affects how we relate to one another and how we connect, or how we're repelled from one another. Like your example, sure, it was small, but it's not in the scheme of Johnny's life. That shit is a big deal. He could have been a world-renowned artist because he's truly talented. He's just didn't fit somebody's box somewhere along the way. And like you said, I'll reiterate, every one of us can probably think back and we have a story, and now that's left a mark on us. And it's a mark we carry for life where somebody said, no, not that way. That's not right. Do it this way because this way is my way. So it's right.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even tell you the amount of backlash my daughter's experienced in her family life and in her world from having emotional intelligence, from having firm boundaries, from speaking up and using her voice, and that sense of threat to a way of life that works because it's muted. Nobody causes ripples unnecessarily. Everybody just floats along. And my little strong-willed Leo, with her mom backing her, saying, you know what, you've got a voice that matters, and she uses it. And the ripples that have been caused because of a young woman standing in her truth and saying, this is what my heart says, and I need you to know that, because it feels uncomfortable. It feels threatening. So some people have been drawn in, other people have been repelled out, the people who aren't ready for that. And that's okay too. That's a piece we should touch on, is that we're all at different points. Like you and I are relating so well because we're at similar points and similar mind frames, but there's so many different points in the journey. At one point in your journey, you weren't ready. You weren't ready to look at things and hear things and accept differences, just like I wasn't. And then you start, there's something happens that increases your readiness and your desire and your willingness. And then you start to explore and move through, and you align with different people at different stages, at different phases. And your misalignments actually are so very highlighted. And I think that's a part of what is discouraging for us, is we're afraid we're going to lose friends and family when we start truly stepping into our truth and not just being the feminine versions of quiet, subtle, passive, agreeable, good girls, but when we're the shake shit up girls.
The fierce mama bear.
Right? I've got my good girl streak. Yeah, for sure. I can be passive. I can get along. I can nurture. I can also pull out the claws and the boots and get after it when I need to, because we all have those components. And the women who are not so afraid to utilize all of those components and embrace all those components of their truth, they're terrifying. They are. They're the ones making waves and shaking shit up and, grabbing the tree and shaking it, and all the loose branches are coming off and things are falling on you. And, then there's room for fresh new growth. But without anybody shaking things up, things just remain the same. And so those women can be terrifying. But when you're ready to start shifting and taking a look and, oh, I can own some of that truth. Yep, I can be that new me. I can have the courage to step outside of the box I've been agreeing to live in, because that box no longer fits. It's tight and it's squeezing me. So when I expand out of it, there's a whole new world out there. And man, can I breathe. Right?
And I think that, like, when you're in the box, it feels scary because it's uncertain, right? So everything outside the box is just uncertain. It's unknown. And you're like, I don't know what to expect here. So it's actually safer inside my box, which is, comfortable, I guess. But sometimes it's not even comfortable, and yet we still choose it. So it's really certain is the key thing. And now what's exciting is that outside of certainty lies unlimited possibility. Everything you've never even yet thought possible exists out there.
Yeah.
So by staying inside of your limits that are previously there, you're missing what is outside, what possibilities and opportunities exist. You're just literally not seeing them. This is a factor of your reticular activating system, your brain filter, to be like, this isn't aligned. We're on this mode. This is the box we're in. So can we filter in the things that align and make sense in this box? And now you're talking about leaning in, feeling the pull, trusting that your body knows, and this inner barometer of like, okay, I know what's good for me. Innately, I will feel it. It will feel good. Okay, so this is my secret trick. What feels good in your body is a direction for you to continue exploring, and what feels bad in your body, okay, and stripping away the stories, because the
Yeah.
stories are not giving you the information. Okay. The stories are keeping you trapped in a shit show loop of ongoing patterns. And you're like, oh my God, here we go again. It's Groundhog Day on a whatever, riding the struggle bus around the same block.
Yeah.
You don't want to go there. But what we want to do is come back into touch with our bodies, because there is an invaluable amount of information right there waiting. We just have never been taught, or haven't figured out, or lost along the way how to connect in with that signal that is inside of us. And
Yeah.
so instead of thinking, how does this make me feel? No, no, no. We've been conditioned to worry about what everyone else feels, how
Yeah.
this makes everyone else feel. And now we're doing all this strategizing instead of actually just trusting ourselves,
Yeah.
right? We're again focused all of out there. And actually, this is why women are so powerful when we tap into that, because we have this knowing, men too. Okay, again, talking to women as the audience of the show. We are powerful as fuck when we are in tune with ourselves and that inner barometer. And what happens if if we're not, is we kind of forget. We don't know what's good for us. We're too busy focused out there. We're too busy trying to control and manage all the things out there. We're missing that key director, that director inside of us that says, this is what you're meant to do, and it's going to feel good.
Yes.
It's going to
Yes.
feel good.
Totally. I love the old saying, the you will not change until the pain of staying the same is greater than the fear of change.
Yeah.
Right? And that's that box getting too tight and stifling and suffocating. And suddenly you need to burst out of it and explode out of it. And instead of leaning into the edges of it, we often wait until we're bursting out of it.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like an explosion. It's this big, massive swing from one side to the other. And it's kind of more chaos. And it's not bad when it happens that way. There's just another way.
Yeah. A little
Right?
bit gentler way, right?
Yeah.
And what I would suggest to people that are not fully committed to trying on a whole different belief pattern or a different thought paradigm, is just to try it on. Just
Yeah.
try it on for a minute and say, if I were to believe this, then the implications in my life would be this. And just see, just try it for yourself, okay? Like, just try on. What if I don't know, what if I believed in Buddha instead of Jesus? I don't know. I'm just picking something. Just what would the implications be? How would that change my life? And then you're going to see what comes up for you is going to be a big indication of maybe what beliefs you have in what that means, those labels, those meanings and attachments to the things, those areas where you don't want to be wrong are going to probably get highlighted. But I just throw it out there as an experiment. Just walk yourself through, what if I were to believe this different thing than I currently believe? And what would that mean for me?
I love that so much because as humans, we have a tendency to think so finite.
Mhm.
Everything is finite instead of infinite. And the truth is that if we make a choice, that doesn't make it permanent. We are
No.
not married to that decision until death do us part. We're married to that decision until we choose to change it. And so
Yeah.
if we just want to literally try, I use that statement too, try it on for
Yeah.
size, see how it feels. That's literally a statement. I love that you said that because it's
Yeah.
literally something I use as well. And because we're not only one thing, and until we explore and discover and explore in all ways, like as women, as humans, explore the world, explore sensuality, explore your body, explore your emotions, explore your wounds, explore your pleasure, explore adventures,
Oh, it's
literally.
all part of the human experience. Like it's a
Yes.
delicious adventure when you
Yes,
lean into it
absolutely. It's
fully.
like, you can't say you hate hiking if you've never gone. You can't say you love hiking if you've never gone because it's just an idea you're attaching to.
Yeah.
And, and how many different areas can you hike? How many different types of terrain can you encounter? So until you've tried the various terrains, you're not going to know what your favorite is. You're not going to know where your
Yeah.
strengths lie either, because you may be surprised climbing the mountain, reaching the summit might actually be your strength versus strolling through trails that make you feel bored. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because that's just not your jam. Like we all have such different versions, but until we explore our worlds internal and external, we just
Mhm.
don't know. So you know, staying in that tiny little box of, like I'm the soccer yoga mom who has dinner ready every night, hot on the table when he gets home. And I don't step outside that and I don't curse publicly. Like, okay, blow the doors off that shit, in my opinion, and just see what feels good. Go do hot yoga, go do HIIT
Try all the
yoga,
things. That's
go
what I
do,
say to people too.
right? Just
Try
branch
new
out.
things.
You're
And
not
if
committed to it.
yeah,
Try it once.
and if you're not quite brave enough to try the things, experiment in your mind, okay? Because our minds are powerful as fuck. And if you want to have an experience that feels a little bit less risky, you can always first trial that experience in your mind and play it out the way you would love for it to go down. See what the implications are. See what comes up in your body. Does your body say, "Ooh, yes, I like this. This feels good to me. Let's explore this more." Or does your body say, "No, not really, not for me." Because was as we experiment and try on different ways of looking at things or different experiences for ourselves, and just want to reiterate, bang on, knowledge is entirely different than experience.
Yes.
Experiential knowledge is far superior. So trying it on, just explore, be open, be curious, and that is going to open up an entire world for you that you didn't know existed before.
And I'm just going to throw in there, because we're speaking to women.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, on this thread, I love the idea of exploring mentally in terms of like sensuality and sexuality. This is
Pleasure.
not something we all publicly speak about, and it's not even something I typically speak to, but it is so strong in me right now to speak
Mm.
it that I have to just encourage this. Explore what feels good and what you like, and do it in your mind. Have that experience alone in a safe space with no one else involved if you need, so that you can start exploring and expanding. Because especially as women, you're either the good girl or the whore.
Mhm.
Do you know what
It's
I mean?
strange how there's such a dichotomy, and it's interesting that you say this because I'm literally reading a book about Mary Magdalene right now, who has been painted as the whore.
Yeah,
In actuality, perhaps she was really uh, infinitely wise and a crucial piece of this. However, there seems to be an extreme for women.
right.
There's an expectation that if we're not this, then we must be this, and that doesn't allow for well, everything on the spectrum in between, which
And
is the way of duality, I suppose, is just two opposites. But I don't believe that it's just two opposites. I always think there's a huge spectrum of things in between. And, labeling it as one extreme or the other is never helpful, anyways.
absolutely. Just like we are as humans in our masculine feminine energy balance, there's such a spectrum of variation and combinations of truth that can and do exist.
Yeah.
Same thing as sexuality and sensuality. What makes you feel like a sexy, strong, confident woman in the bedroom or in your life is not going to be the same thing as it will be for me. But
Right.
if I don't explore that, if you don't explore that, you won't know. And if you conform to the idea that you're either the good girl or the whore, either it's just this simple way and nothing else, otherwise you are this raunchy woman, when in fact who you are, what pleasures you, what feels the best in your body, in your soul, in your heart, in your mind, in your partnership, in your relationships, is so diverse. There is absolutely no way to say there is one right or wrong. So if you want to safely start exploring these things, and like I said, I have no idea why I'm speaking to sexuality. It's not something I usually talk about like this. But
Well,
if
it's
you
so
want,
crucial.
it's
Like, I
so
think
crucial.
we as women are really shutting ourselves down in the pleasure department because there's so much shame
Yes.
around the topic. And I'm not, okay, I don't want to dive into a religious thing here, but men seem to have the opposite where they are expected to be quote unquote the whore. And that is a good thing for men to be experienced and
Wonderful.
powerful, right? And
Yeah.
so we're on the opposite end of the spectrum. And so we have all of this shame
Yeah.
and guilt, and like it's been taught to us. And men are not exempt from this teaching as well. I will just say there are plenty of men who do feel shameful around their sexual desires too. But again, we're talking to more women here. You know, this shame is actually just fully clouding our ability to receive pleasure. And you deserve pleasure. Okay? All the queens out there listening, you deserve pleasure. And
All the
most
pleasure.
of the time, it is unfortunately another one of these situations where we are limiting ourselves in the pleasure that we are receiving, which sucks to hear. I know that might be triggering to somebody. But
Yes.
on the flip side, it means it's also in your power to discover what feels pleasurable and to receive it. That is up to you. So, well, it
And
kind of
you're
might.
Yes, and your first baby step can just be explored in your mind and
Yeah.
see what you think may feel good on a physical level. Because our minds are so powerful, your body will actually have sensations and experience at least components of it if you are in a safe space where you can allow yourself to be open and vulnerable and be fully present. You can actually have a snippet of that experience on a physiological level as well as mental level, emotional level, and explore that within yourself first. Keep it safe if you need to. There is no shame in that, and no one will ever know until you're ready to start inching towards that expansion and leaning into that edge. You don't have to be full on, balls to the wall, wide open, kick the doors open, run through,
You could just
blazing.
try it on.
You can just try it on. Put a sheer cover on to try it on, nice and light and thin. Give it a go where
And
it's soft and
maybe
gentle
just
and safe.
rub a little lotion on your body and just allow yourself to be in the experience, right?
Yes.
And just to, you know, give to yourself, but also to be the receiver of that good feeling and just listen, just listen. Just be in the
Yes.
moment and just listen because you know what? Who doesn't need some more orgasms? You know what I mean? Like, who doesn't need a little bit more of that in their life? I don't know if there's a limit to how much is too much. There sure probably is, but we're probably most of us are probably not there because we're busy doing life and all of these other things. So allow yourself if that's something that you're hesitant on, just try it on. Just try it on a little bit.
And if it's not
So
that and it's something else, just try it on.
just try it on. You never know what might happen if you try on a different belief system for yourself. Let us know, Dawnalyn, what are you working on? What projects are you kind of passionately working towards, or what exciting upcoming things have you got to share with us?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I actually am going to be opening up some one-to-one coaching
Awesome.
spaces where we can dig into all of the things feminine, all of the things empowerment, accountability, all the beautiful stuff we've touched on today, all that stuff. And I actually have also with the retreat company, we have 2 retreats launching in May and June of next year.
Awesome.
May is in Bali, and we're doing a women's yoga retreat. So it's going to be 5 nights, 6 days, all things yoga, feminine, connected, connection, both inward and outward. It's going to be oh so beautiful, sound healing, all the things. It's going to be just amazing. And I have
Yeah.
the best yoga instructor. I cannot wait for this. Who's
Yeah.
going to come with me? She's amazing. And the other one that I'm super excited about, we have a luxury retreat coming up in June in Mexico on the Baja. Oh my gosh, it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. So, one of my co leaders is actually from the Edmonton area as well. She's
Awesome.
going to be joining me for that one. It's going to be all things divine feminine, empowered. We're going to have some ecstatic dance. We're going to have some movement. We're going to have some, yeah, we're
Opportunity
going
to
to
explore and try
right?
on,
And
right?
some ocean therapy and
Mm.
some ceremonies. And oh my gosh, it's going to be so, both will be so expansive and heart driven and heart expanding in such different ways. But
Yeah.
so excited about those. And then yeah, the one-to-one coaching opportunities are going to be coming up this fall as well.
Awesome. So much opportunity for transformation, really. So we'll have your contact information in the show notes. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, get more information, they can find all of those details by following up there. And
Beautiful.
let's wrap up the show with one last practical idea, tip, hack, strategy, whatever you'd like to share with us today on how our listeners can go about creating a little bit more happiness in their life today.
I love that so much. Okay. So if I had to give you, I always have a hard time giving just one tip.
You know,
If
there's
I had
always a
to
lot of ideas, right?
I can give you seven.
Yeah.
So let's aim for one. If I had to give you one tip to create more happiness in your life, I would say do one small thing each day that is self-honoring, creates pleasure, is self-care or self-appreciating or increasing self-awareness. So it can be one small thing, tiny, tiny. Have a bath, put cinnamon in your coffee once in a while, whatever it might be. Go to that yoga class, do the 5-minute meditation on your drive home before you get out of the car, whatever it might be. One
Find that thing.
small thing.
Find that thing that makes you feel good,
Yeah.
right? A small thing. It doesn't have to be big movements. Those small things in those seemingly like they're nothing
Yes.
really change the trajectory of your life,
Yep.
your outlook and your experience of reality faster than you ever realize because they're so tiny.
So tiny. And the second part of it, I would just say, see, I can't stop. The second part of it, I would just say, is try new things each day. Don't do the same thing each day, but mix it up. And maybe that one small thing is trying something new, right?
Mhm.
So try to mix it up and keep it fresh so that you're loved and appreciated and valued by you. One small thing.
And as you do that, you are also further developing your brain and rewiring new circuits, which helps you to, redirect out of the old patterns and into the new, into that higher version of yourself, into that empowered, best version of you step by step every single day.
I love it. Rewiring and reconnecting.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for being here. I so appreciate you and this conversation.
It was such an honor. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you so much for listening to today's show. I trust you were inspired to take back your power and create your happy. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with women in your life who could use a little extra inspiration today. If you'd like to connect with myself and/or today's guest, you can find those details in the show notes. We would love to hear from you. If you've got an inspiring story to share, you can also apply to be a guest on the show at createyourhappy.ca. As always, get out there, have fun, be you, and create your happy.